Alrighty, let's jump in. Hey everybody, this may be your first sales training from my couch, or maybe you've been to these before. My name is Marc Bernstein. I'm the CEO here at Balto, and today we are talking about a topic that directly increases your pipeline, directly helps you close more business, and that is building a pipeline of referrals. So let's start out with a quick topic. We're going to today talk about some of the bits and pieces of how you manage reciprocity, where you're giving referrals as well as taking them. We're going to talk about why they're a particularly special lead source, where you can find referrals, when to ask for them in your sale or your customer life cycle, what to say in order to increase the chance that you actually get one. And then our activity today will be a strategy session where we'll all break out or take some time on our own and come up with a few different ways that we're going to start looking for referrals and building our referral pipeline. Here's the first question for you. How many introductions have you made in the last month? Actually, take a second to think about that. Like, kind of go through some of the people you might have emailed. Maybe you're trying to connect two coworkers or two people in your network for a job opportunity. Maybe you're you have a good lead for a partner that you're working with. You want to send them a lead. Take a second. How many introductions do you think you've made in the last month? Whatever the number is the number of introductions you should expect to have received in the last month. That's one of the things that a lot of folks aren't thinking about, which is that in order to build up your referral pipeline, you need to be constantly connecting others and giving to others. Be their referral, give them a referral, because that's the sort of way that you can build up your pipeline. So before we jump into a little bit about why referrals are special, let's take a second and talk about managing reciprocity. Reciprocity is one of the foundational aspects of managing a sales cycle and building a book of business, building a book of relationships. And what it fundamentally means is balancing the amount that you are asking from others with the amount that you are giving to others. What's so challenging about that is that we all have this little mental counter in our heads where we're thinking, okay, I gave him 2 referrals, so I'm hoping he gives me 2 more. Or I made an intro for her, so hopefully it's her turn now. She should make the intro for me. And we all have this little mental counter. And what's important is that when you are thinking about building your pipeline of referrals, when you're thinking about building your book of business, you need to get rid of the counter. You need to totally toss out the counter and not be thinking about referrals, introductions as I give you one, you give me one. I give you one, you give me one. Instead, it's the sort of thing where you need to proactively be making introductions for others, proactively be giving other people referrals, and then using your gut to judge, does this feel fair? That's one of the really interesting things about fairness, is that it's really it's intuition. It's based on just how we feel. Does it feel fair? And I think humans are better and better judges of what is fair and what is not, even though we can't always articulate it. So instead of having that mental counter of I give you one and I hope you give me one, think about giving the other person a few wins proactively, and then just making sure you're balancing it with, is this fair? Am I getting something in return? So let's talk about what we mean about referrals. When we talk about referrals, what we are talking about is somebody introducing you to another party, usually for the purpose of trying to do business with you. So I might make a referral by connecting the phone system that Balto uses with, internally with one of Balto's customers. That's a referral. And the thing that's really special about them is that they almost universally have faster sales cycles where they close quicker, and they have higher close rates where they're more likely to close. And there's a few reasons for that when you just break down the science behind it. The first is that they're pre-qualified because somebody else looked at that lead first. You know it's not just like a tire kicker. You know it's not someone that accidentally stumbled upon your website and filled out a lead form, because somebody else took the human thought and said, I think connecting this person with this person would be good for both of their lives. So there's some level of qualification. You also have a second level of qualification in that your audience is open-minded. Somebody who gets an introduction and says yes to a referral is saying, I don't quite know who you are or why you want to talk or how this meeting is going to go, but Mary introduced us, and I think Mary is really great, and I trust her. So I'm open to seeing what you have to say. We don't always have open-minded buyers come to us, and people who are saying yes to a referral tend to be more open-minded and being willing to lean into the sale. There's also trust that is automatically built in because somebody is speaking on your behalf, right? So that's one of the reasons that the sales cycles are typically faster, is because some of the extra diligence that somebody might do, they might be able to skip that because they say, well, I'm going to assume the other person who just made the referral already did that diligence, so I don't need to do it again. And then the last bit here is there's an automatic customer story. Now, it may not actually be a customer story. Maybe it's just a prospect story or relationship story. But you, the person who referred you, and your referral all have something in common. And that's that you both know one of the people. You and the referral both know the person that referred you. So that's an automatic story. What is their experience like? How did they find Balto? Why did they think about you? Why did they think about introducing you? How are they using you? Those are the sort of things that allow you to tell really relevant customer stories that the other person can picture. Because when you say, oh yeah, John is using our technology for this, they go, oh yeah, I can imagine John doing that. He loves doing that kind of thing. So you have an automatic customer story built in, and it's more vivid than a white paper about a company that they may have never heard before or don't know anyone there. So that's why we want referrals, is because they're really fast lead cycles and they close at a higher rate. So where do we get them? Where do we find referrals? And the obvious answer that comes to all of our minds is, well, you go to your customers and you say, do you know anyone else who would appreciate the experience? Sure, do that, please. It's great. It's really great. But there's referral opportunities everywhere. And if you build your network where those referral opportunities are, then you're going to find that they're coming to you all the time. So who do your customers talk to for guidance and advice? Who do they trust? Can you go to the people that your customers trust and build relationships with them and say, hey, I know that company X loves working with you and really trusts you. And we've had a great experience with company X as well. Do you know anyone like company X you could refer us to? So go to the watering hole, go to the place where all the cool kids hang out. What brands do they tend to trust? Can you get to know people at those brands? Where do your customers go to learn? Can you connect with people on LinkedIn and social media that your customers look to improve their skills? Can you go to resources and online forums? And in fact, actually, Quora is one of the more interesting ones because Quora is like a question answering service where people ask questions on the internet and anyone can answer. And what's so interesting is that you think, who would spend time going on the internet and answering Quora questions? Turns out that when you provide the best answer to someone's question online, they automatically have some level of trust for you and often will click your name and find you and go into whatever you do. So if someone asked me, someone was actually doing a Quora post online and it said, how do I get more referrals and sales? If I answered that, at the bottom had my name, my contact info, and Balto, a good portion of the people that found that helpful would click and go learn more about Balto. So we started the relationship by helping. How can you find those watering holes and make relationships there in the watering hole so the people who interface with that are you can ask for an introduction? What kind of companies do your customers interface with every day? Who are the people that they're talking to daily? And that honestly might be somebody like the Balto team. That might be your telephony company. What is a technology that you use every single day? And can you get to know the people who built that technology? Can you get to know the people who are behind it? And then when you look at a segment of your best customers, where do they all go? Often this is conferences, often these might be like executive networking sessions, and where they all go. Because if you can find one person at that watering hole, one, and develop a relationship, your ability to get referrals, introductions from that individual is really, really rich. So in order to be thinking about other opportunities besides just talking to your customer base, you want to say, where do all the cool kids hang out? So we talked about why to get a referral. We talked about where you can get a referral. Now, what are some of the times when do you want to ask for a referral? We listed out 14 different options here that I'll briefly go through. And it's important to note that these options are actually just for prospects, people you're selling into, and current customers. Doesn't even include partners, doesn't include your network, doesn't include, you name it, people you met at a conference. But here's a couple examples just for when you're working with prospects and your customers, when you can ask. So the first is after the presentation, after your demo. If you gave a killer demo and they said, oh, wow, this is so cool, I love it. The natural question that a lot of folks at Balto have learned to ask is, well, what do you love about it? And your buyer will say, well, I really love X, Y, or Z. I love that it's fast. I love that it's real time. And I love that it guides the sales rep proactively before the call is lost. Those are some things I love about Balto. In which case you now have a vivid picture of what Balto can deliver. You could say, who else do you think would like that? Who else do you think would be interested in a fast system, a real-time system, and one that proactively delivers advice? And your buyer can rack their brain and think about that. So after the demo is a great opportunity. The second is when you meet new stakeholders. So if you're selling into a larger organization where you have a champion or a sponsor, and then that sponsor is introducing you to a broader team, they're making an introduction to their team. So they're already making an introduction of some sort. Why don't, in addition, you say, hey, I'm so glad to be demoing for your team next week. We have this presentation buttoned up and ready to go. We're going to crush it. Can you think of anyone else who thinks like your team does? Maybe someone that you work with who you think also could use Balto. That's the sort of thing you can ask when you make that introduction. After a customer reference, one of the things that's really interesting is when people are calling on one of your references, they recognize that you're giving up something, and that you're exposing a vulnerability, you're introducing them to a customer, and that you care about your customers and you protect your customers. So if they get off a great reference call and they say, hey, I just talked to Susan. Susan rocks, and she said she loves your software. You can say, oh, really? I'm so glad to hear that. We have a lot of customers like Susan. Can you think of anyone like her that you could introduce us to? So there's a little bit of reciprocity right there. Next is part of the negotiation. If you're trying to sign a deal and you're getting down to brass tacks and your customer says, I need a 10% discount or I'm out. Well, that's a great time to say, you know what? We love trying to make flexible agreements for our customers. And whenever we do that, we want to make sure that we're keeping the balance fair. So, maybe part of our trade-off here is we can give you 10%. If you can promise to introduce us to 3 customers, we could even put that in your order form that you'll make 3 introductions. How's that sound? So that's one of the interesting pieces there is if someone is getting 10% off a purchase, imagine it's a $1,500 security system. Well, if they are getting 10% off, they're getting $150. How long does it take to write 3 emails, right? Maybe it takes 20 minutes. So if that person wants to earn $450 an hour, they can do it by making 3 referrals for 10% off, and it's equivalent to $450 an hour. So the economics for someone making a referral, part of negotiation is really good. We've all heard asking for a referral when the deal closes. Super common example. I won't go into much. Can you think of anyone else who would be interested in this? Thank you for buying. We appreciate your business. But what people don't think about is asking for a referral when the deal is lost. A lot of times, deals don't go through, not because someone doesn't want them to go through, but because there is some roadblock at that minute, in that moment, that is preventing the deal from going through. And that person might have loved every bit of your presentation, loved the relationship, want to buy your solution down the line, but just can't do it there. And when they're giving you some bad news, there's a little bit of guilt that we feel when you're saying, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. You've spent so much time with me. We've done all these meetings, all these hours. I just can't do it. Well, definitely let your customer off the hook and say, hey, I get that. No problem. Like, we can always find a time to do this later. We do build our business based on referrals. And since you had such a good experience here, and we've had a great time working together, if you're able to think of just one person like you who might be able to find the solution helpful, that would be really meaningful to us. So when a deal is closed lost, try to ask for the referral, because I can tell you what, you're going to have a lot more closed lost deals than you're going to have closed won deals. Similarly, think about when someone's discussing a partnership. Often people will get excited and they'll say, oh my God, I see big things for us. Big things. We're gonna be in business together. We're gonna be a partner. We're gonna pass leads back and forth. We're gonna do webinars together. And that's a great time to say, yeah, let's do it. To kick things off, can you think of one person you'd be able to send our way? Take advantage of that momentum. And I mean that, like, capitalize on the momentum. Similarly, when you do a customer success handoff, when the person, they signed, they're ready to start, and they meet that new person in customer success, that could be a great reason to start the meeting by saying, hey, just want to learn a little bit. For what reason did you decide to move forward with us? And the customer will tell you. And you could say, great, well, can you think of anyone who, for that exact reason, that specific reason, might also want to move forward with us? You can do it when service starts. So maybe there's some implementation that you have to do. Maybe there's an installation that you have to do. And there's a little bit of delay between when they sign and when they start. But I'll tell you what, when that beautiful car you've been wanting to get for a year gets delivered, because everything's delivery nowadays, and boom, it's delivered right outside your house, beautiful bow on top of the car, that is a great time to say, as you're signing over the papers that say, this is now my car, do you know anyone else who would like a car just like that? So that's the sort of time when you feel excited about having that purchase, that you can capitalize on that momentum as well. Same sort of thing after an upsell. If someone's buying more of your service, that's a great time to continue to push that momentum. After delivering results is probably the most common one that folks see, which is that you have proven that whatever you are selling does exactly what the customer wanted it to. And maybe they just called you up and said, I love what you do. Maybe you guys had a meeting and they said, good news, our numbers are up, it's working. Maybe they said, we just signed on 10 new customers because of you, thank you. Well, that's a great opportunity to capitalize on that momentum as well. After a customer interview, if you are interviewing a customer for a story or for a video, that person is spending 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour telling you all about why they love your solution. So if they're going to invest in, for that amount of time, talking about how great you are, it seems like a very small ask and an easy one, a psychologically easy one, to then say, I'm so glad you're happy. I'm so glad you're a great customer. Can you think of anyone else who would be as well? After visiting a customer on site, travel, which is not happening right now, is a big signal of commitment and respect. When you go to meet somebody on site, you are showing them that you're going to exchange your time and your stress and your money to be out of town and on a plane and on a car in order to take care of them. And when you get back on an on-site, first of all, you want to thank the customer for inviting you, because that's, it's stressful for them too. But that is a great time to say, it was good talking with you. Can you think of anybody else who would love to have the same sort of experience we had while I was there? And then exact same idea for after renewal, same concept of building on momentum. So now let's get into what to say. There is one key strategy in how you ask for the renewal. And that is that you want to create a vivid association with some sort of cue or trigger or scenario in your solution. So that often requires some sort of audio-visual cue. And one of the things that I love saying whenever I'm asking for a referral for Balto is I'll say, you know that feeling you get, it's emotional, when you're walking your call center floor, your sales floor, and you walk by one of the agents and you hear them say something that is just, ugh, you're like, oh, why would they say it like that? Oh, they're ruining the sale. How did the customer respond? You know that feeling? Well, you know, because we demoed to you that Balto solves for that. The next time you hear that and that you think about that, can you try to send somebody our way who you think might have a similar sort of situation? That very vivid description helps people picture who to refer, because that's the hard part. Like, folks want to help. People want to help. The problem is that sometimes it takes a little bit of time to think of somebody. And the most common thing you'll hear when you ask for a referral is, yeah, I got to think about it. I'll see if I can find someone. Help them. The person that you want to talk to, and I'll actually use the second bullet here, the sort of person who's most interested in Balto typically is a director level or sometimes a VP level. They're usually in sales or operations or even compliance, and they're trying to make big changes to their contact center operation, not just necessarily affect one metric. Maybe they're working on a metric now, but they're the kind of like expansive thinker who wants to make big changes. Do you know anyone like that? So help them picture exactly the kind of referral you want, which, by the way, A, helps them generate the idea, but B, helps them qualify. You're telling them, this is my ideal perfect customer. So help them introduce the perfect customer to you. Example questions: can you think of someone you know who cares about X? The sort of person that's most interested in our solution, typically X. The next time you hear someone say that they're trying to revamp their work from home situation, would you be so kind as to make an intro? Because we put a lot of time and thought into connecting people in our network where we think that they could benefit each other for a relationship, and we'll do the same for you. So there's a reciprocity component to that as well. So this is the activity. Let's take time and strategize. Think about referrals that we can get and people we can connect. So we'll jump into questions in just a second. I'll explain the activity. The first is going to be to list out 3 pairs of people who you think might want to meet each other. And then after this meeting, go introduce them. 3 pairs of people. Who is someone you know that would likely really get along with or find value in or meeting someone else you know? 3 connections. The second part of the activity is to list out 3 watering holes, places where you think all of your customers hang out, where maybe one person who has an in could help you meet everyone else in that area at that watering hole. So list out 3 places you could go to go find those referral sources. And then the last is listing out 3 trigger points in your customer lifecycle, which is the sales process and the customer onboarding and upsell and renewal process. 3 trigger points in that full life cycle where you want to personally commit to asking for a referral. Let's work out the math for just a second. Imagine that you work, let's say 25 deals a month. You work 25 deals a month, which means you work 75 deals a quarter. If you win 1/5 of your deals, 1/5 of your deals, that means you have 15 deals that you're winning. And then that also means that you have 60 deals that you're losing. If you ask all 15 deals that you won for a referral, and half of them say yes, that's 7 or 8 warm leads just by asking those people you won for a referral. Now let's say you ask them and 7 say yes, but you also ask the 60 that you lost. You ask the 60 that you lost for a referral, and half of them aren't going to say yes because maybe half of them ghosted you. But the other half of the half, a quarter, say yes. Well, that's 15 additional referrals as well. So if you're working 75 deals a quarter, the math works out that you could be generating 22 leads from those 75 deals. That's how you develop a recurring pipeline and build a network of referrals. So let's wrap up here. We talked about today the reciprocity principle, that you need to make sure that you are giving referrals, introductions, as well as receiving. We talked about why referrals are a special source of leads and how they close faster and tend to have a higher close rate. We talked about where to go to get referrals and where the cool kids are. We talked about when in your cycle you want to go through and ask for a referral. We talked about what to say to actually get the referral. And then we planned out a little bit here of different ways that you can make this a habit. So that's the last part I'll leave with you, is that it does need to be a habit. If once in a while you send an email and refer someone, then that's the number of referrals you'll get. But if you can commit to, on a weekly basis, doing 1 of these a day, or 2 of these a day, or 5 of these a day, imagine what you'd be able to do in terms of your lead generation and the number of people that'll be coming into your network and your resources. Thank you all for joining me in sales training from my living room, or from my couch. This is Marc Bernstein, and I will see you all next time for sales training next week. That's 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And we'll wrap up here. Thank you all so much.